Okay, Rick, nobody is saying that because nobody can prove it.
Okay.
That's what I'm angry about, Rick. You can't prove that Hillary Clinton, who was in a position to advise the president not to do this deal, who just received millions, was not bribed. There's no document, there is no witness testimony where a guy got up there, where Telfair or Giustra or Hillary in a court of law said, yes, I was bribed. We don't have that. We don't have any signature. We don't have a film of her taking the money and saying, therefore, I will sail this deal through. Even though I fought a Chinese company, it just so happens by coincidence that you gave my foundation hundreds of millions of dollars, and I'm going to let this, I just coincidentally am going to let this deal go through. We don't have her saying, no, because you gave me the money, I'm going to give you the uranium. We don't have her saying that, Rick. That's why bribery is difficult to prove. Yeah. And you have, no, you're interrupting me. And you have to rely on circumstances. In 2010, when the deal went down, Telfair began to give millions to Clinton. That was the year he decided to be charitable to the foundation. And it's just a coincidence that Bill received $500,000 within months of this deal going down from a company, from bankers that had investments in Uranium One. High-level executives intimately involved with Rosatom. Now, what I'm angry about is you can't just admit that a reasonable person would give up on this and just say, I have no evidence on my side that Clinton wasn't getting bribed.
Well, that's like when did you stop beating your wife? It's one of those.
Well, Rick,
but I'll make you a deal. I have a deal for you. I'll yield on Uranium One if you yield on Trump taking money laundering deals from Russians and via Deutsche Bank. You give me that, I'll give you Uranium One.
Okay, Rick. This is the people watching this now are going to say that that's a very crude out for you. We're not 12 years old. That might have worked when you were 12. Like another kid would say, well, your dad did even worse. No, it doesn't work that way. For 3 years now, you've been telling me that the Clintons were pure on the Uranium One deal, which has been completely debunked. And I've just proven to you, I've proven to all objective people watching.
No, you just gave circumstantial evidence.
But there is no way to prove, there is no filming of Clinton saying, give me $500,000 and I'll sail through the CFIUS deal. There is no way to prove that. I can't give you that.
Okay.
Nobody can. There is no film of it. There is no court. There is no court testimony where Clinton admits it.
Okay, so
what I'm saying is you have to be able to put two and two together, and you're willfully not doing it. And that's what makes me think you're either not terribly objective,
well, that's probably
or you're mischievous in this situation.
Well, no, but
and what I'm saying is this: you need to prove that you have credibility at this point.
So, all right, so fine. So, let me go. Let me borrow Clinton cash, and let me go spend a certain number of hours.
Believe it or not, the New York Times has the better article.
Okay. What's the name of the article?
You can't get it. I'm going to email this to you. You can't get it unless you buy the New York Times.
No, it turns out I found out a way behind it.
I'm going to email you this article now.
Okay.
When he turns the camera off, or I can do it when you're.
Yeah, just when we're done. We're done.
Okay.
Right.
I'll email you the article. So
I just have one more. Okay.
The best article was actually the New York Times.
All right. I have one last question, then we can move on to other stuff.
All right.
you must have read something about American uranium going to Canada and then from there to who knows where, right?
Correct.
Do you know, did that article, do you have that, know what that article is?
Well,
And also, do you have any idea about how much of it went elsewhere?
the exact amount?
Well, just roughly. And then, I don't know, we'll go on to Hunter Biden.
I think, should Adam ask this question now? Adam?
Yeah, go ahead.
If he's still there, Adam, you feel free to ask your question anytime now. Adam Lohr, who's,
Here is I'm going to go to the most recent article, and
we should take a break after this.
Okay. Yeah, we'll break after.
Okay, Adam says, do you think,
oh, here it is.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'll answer your question.
after this, Adam,
The commission, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, confirmed that Uranium One, this is New York Times.
Same article.
Same article. Last paragraphs. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has confirmed that yellow cake, which is uranium, which is raw uranium, was shipped to Canada even though it does not have the export license to do so. Instead, the transport company doing the shipping was RSB Logistics Services. So they got a shell company to do it for them. And the commission spokesman, that is from the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, said, to the best of our knowledge, most of the uranium sent to Canada for processing was returned to the U.S. A Uranium One spokesman, Donna Witchers, said 25% had gone to Western Europe and Japan. At the moment, with the uranium market in a downturn, nothing is being shipped from the Wyoming mines. No export assurance given. The no export assurance, the quote, no export assurance given at the time of the Rosatom deal is not the only one that turned out to be less than it seemed. Despite pledges to the contrary, Uranium One was delisted from the Toronto Stock Exchange and taken private and taken private. So it's now a private company, and it is now, as of 2013, 100% owned by Russia.
Okay. All right.
all right.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take a break.
Adam-
Adam's question.
Says Adam's question reads, do you think traditional family roles of being a provider are comparable to socialism in a way? I'll repeat it. You want to repeat the question?
No,
Do you think traditional family roles of being a provider are comparable to socialism in a way?
all right. So last night, Saturday Night Live had a skit where J.J. Watt was the guest. He's a huge football player. And they had a skit where the kid catches J.J. Watt, the dad, banging the mom. Then the morning after, the dad comes in to talk about it with the kid, and the kid doesn't want to hear about it. And the dad goes into way too much detail, and then the mom comes in and pretty much explains that she gets everything she wants for the family, including, pays for the kids' clothes and everything, because what she gives up is so good. And so, in a way, I guess that's what Adam is asking about, is the idea of a male provider or a head of household, regardless of gender, providing for the rest of the family, a form of socialism. And I would argue that everything is a matter of culture. I mean, not within reason. That the trading, family roles for support from a breadwinner isn't considered socialism because it's part of our culture, and we don't consider our culture socialist. But what isn't considered socialist is a matter of tradition and fashion, and we get, until recently, until the Tea Party, say, people were not upset about, most people weren't going around saying taxation is theft. And most people weren't upset about money going to police and fire and roads and libraries, because even though paying for that stuff it could be considered socialism, but most people didn't consider, they just considered it part of the fabric of normal life until Tea Party thinking became more popular and encouraged tens of millions of people to take a second look at stuff like that. But yeah, it's a matter, what isn't socialism.
Michael L. Wrote, the family unit is a socialist unit in a way, at least until the kids are grown up. And he also wrote, does Rick still work out 17 times per day?
5 times per day. Over the past year, I've worked out 5.5 times per day. Over the past 29 years and 12 days, I've worked out an average of 4.6418 times per day, or 32.49 times per week on average.
Adam, I don't know where you get that idea. Socialism means the government takes care of you and your kids. The family taking care of your kids and each other is the basis of American capitalist democracy. That is our system. That's the American way of life. So in other words, if you and your family are the unit that takes care of you and your family and not the government, that's the opposite of socialism. According to Marx, the children are the property of the government, the people, not the family. So that's why, among other things, the socialists try to wreck family cohesion in the U.S. because they want the government to take care of people and become good little slaves and voters for the Democrat Party.
Here's an interesting thing. In the 19th century, when the West was being settled, the West was divided into, I believe, 6 mile by 6 mile, I don't know, were they called townships? But anyway, you had, the land was laid out to be settled in 6 mile by 6 mile grids, which gave you 36 1 by 1 mile squares. And one of those 36 squares, money from that land was supposed to go to education. See, we got a system of state colleges across America, and I assume other schools, like elementary, and I don't know how the whole thing worked. But even 100 years ago, we were setting money aside for public education.
So you must be voting for Sanders. All excited?
No, I mean, if Sanders is the Democratic nominee, I'll vote for Sanders. But Sanders doesn't, to use the cliche, he doesn't blow my skirt up.
One of the things I'm excited about is today is Sunday, and I believe the Democrat primary is
Tomorrow, right?
Yeah. So tomorrow, the projected to win the New Hampshire primary and Iowa caucus, it's Sanders.
Oh, it's a New Hampshire primary and Iowa caucus?
It's the Iowa caucus for sure. Is it the...
No, I mean, I know the Iowa caucus comes first, then the New Hampshire primary, and then within a few weeks of that, the California primary. So it looks like Sanders is going to win Iowa and New Hampshire, which will make him the front runner. and then everything will depend on California.
We
And-
have ours early this year,
Yeah.
March
And-
3rd.
Right, so my point is, it looks like if I had to bet at this point, Sanders is going to get the nomination.
Mm.
So this is the first time in American history that the Socialists have finally taken over a major American party. And I am really gleeful about this. I'm sad that the Democrats have have allowed the communists to take over their party, but I'm happy because I think Trump will crush him.
Well,
And
Trump wants
let me-
Sanders
let
to
me-
be.
Let me respond, let me continue. The reason I think he's gonna crush Sanders is because the one thing the Democrats do very well is they lie to themselves. They lied to themselves that they could somehow remove Trump from office, and they're lying to themselves that the American people will embrace the most left-wing candidate in history. And what they're going to do is they're going to throw up the candidate of their heart, not the candidate of their head. And he is going to be crushed by Trump.
All right,
because the American people are not as far left as the far left part of the Democrat Party.
So,
Real quick.
no,
I'm
hold
sorry.
on, because before I forget everything.
Okay, sure.
Um,
Michael, just hold on, Michael. He has
Okay. The Democrats never thought they could remove Trump via impeachment. I mean, there was a hope, but it wasn't a strong hope.
Then you haven't been on Facebook recently reading.
I don't go on Facebook.
Okay, because I can tell
I mean,
you,
if you-
the Democrats I read on Facebook all thought this was it.
Well, then they're dopes.
Okay.
I'll go on Facebook if you post a new painting, but that's about it. Now, the person who wins Iowa generally doesn't. I don't think generally wins to become the nominee. Iowa's a weird thing, and according to Nate Silver, who compiles all the surveys, Biden has a 50% chance of becoming. He's got the biggest chance right now of becoming the party nominee, and I don't know if Sanders is in second place to him. But just because Bernie wins New Hampshire and Iowa doesn't mean that he's guaranteed to win the nomination. And as I said last week, I'd be okay with Biden because, I think things worked pretty well under Obama. There's been a bunch of ugly stuff under Trump, but the economy's been reasonably strong. The income inequality or the wealth inequality is the largest it's been in 100 years. But I don't think we need to do Bernie Sanders shit to fix that. I think it needs fixing, but I don't think we need to burn everything down.
Michael.
I have a response.
Sure. Sorry.
The lower classes, the blue-collar jobs are getting the highest increase in the wage increases. In the past year, not only have the lower classes gotten more jobs than they've had in 60 years, but they're also getting the higher pay increases.
I've read that a lot of those pay increases are due to states increasing minimum wage. If your state raises minimum wage from the federal level, which hasn't changed in 25 years, of $7.25 an hour, and your state raises it or city raises it to $12 or $14 an hour, then a lot of people are going to see a huge increase in their income.
All right, well, that may be the reason. I don't know, I haven't gone into it in that much depth.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But I also think if you didn't have a job at all, and now you do, that's a good reason to believe that the lower class is benefiting from this. And as we know, unemployment is the lowest it's been in 70 years. The other thing I wanted to mention, just before I forget, is that for a long time now, Rick has refused to believe I think I got him to accept when I showed him that that a U.S. court had finally come down on the side of the Tea Party and awarded them damages from the IRS because the Obama administration had used the IRS to shut down the Tea Party's, they had a certain tax status. Now,
They applied for tax exempt status.
yes, there's a name for it. Now, for a long time, I was furious at Obama using the IRS to harass his political opponents because it's against, everything this country stands for, and is a good window into the character of the man that Rick so admires. But I found this week, as a matter of fact, there was a report from a company that does nothing but analyze how political parties are able to increase or decrease their votes. And their conclusion was that in 2012, the Obama administration's targeting of the tax-exempt status of the Tea Party in Florida and Ohio is what shut them down in the crucial swing states of Florida and Ohio, and that's how Obama won. Those particular states falling for Ohio is what determined the election. They believe that it turns out that the critical thing that the Tea Party was able to do in the 2010 election, when they took over the House of Representatives, the 2010 election was a historic election because it was one of the few times that the Republicans managed to really swing the House of Representatives over to them, to the Republican Party. And it was entirely due to the Tea Party revolution. Well, Obama had 2 years to shut him down, and apparently they were able to shut him down in Florida and Ohio, and that's how Obama stole the election in 2012.
Maybe the Tea Party was responsible for some of the Republican gains. Another thing was Republican gerrymandering. One of the greatest political strategies in recent political history was called Red Map. Republican strategists realized that it's a lot cheaper to win elections for state government than for national government. And they realized if they could take over state government, they could gerrymander the states to deliver more Republican senators and congressmen.
Yeah, and
Not senators, congresspeople. Senators are statewide. One more thing, just back to uranium one for a second. No, one more second. Let me, before I forget.
That's why paper.
Okay, that article, we should probably do this all the time. That article you read from the New York Times said, due to a downturn in the uranium market, no uranium was being exported at the U.S. at that time.
Okay, I did. I said that.
Yeah,
it's in the article.
Okay,
That's
all right, all right.
But before that, 25% had gone to Europe and Japan. And by the way, that's just taking the word of the Uranium One
Yeah, I know,
spokesman.
they can be full of shit.
They could be lying too, given that that spokesman was an employee of the Russian government.
Right, okay.
Real quick, Michael wrote, are you surprised Sanders didn't drop out after the heart attack? Does it even make sense to stay in the race after such a thing? I figured that would end his candidacy.
I'm not that leads to another point, but to answer that one point, like somebody earlier asked, are we ever going to get non-old white men running the country? The deal is that you have people, medical technology is much, much better. People can have near heart attacks, and they go get bypasses and cardiac stents and go on cholesterol blockers and all this stuff, and there's no reason that somebody can't keep going after a heart attack, especially if they're a monomaniacal lunatic like fucking Bernie Sanders. But we have what is going to be, if not a crisis, is going to be an increasingly weird thing, because by 2040, we'll have the medical technology to get most people, at least most people with good medical insurance, living past the age of 90. And a lot of people making it to their late 90s in pretty good shape. The number of supercentenarians, that is people who are 110 years old and older, has like tripled or quadrupled in the past 10 years. And this means that we are going to see candidates, Bernie is he 80? I don't know. But we're going to see older and older candidates. We're going to see older and older Supreme Court justices. By 2050, shit's going to be weird, because you're going to have people on the Supreme Court who are old now and on the Supreme Court now. Some of them are still going to be on the court in 30 years. And it's going to be a source of annoyance for people who aren't 96 years old, that there are people who are 96 years old still governing us.
Should we take a break?
I just wanted to say one last thing. According to the Daily Caller, both sides gerrymander. So that's not a great explanation as to why 2010 led to the Tea Party revolution and the Republicans taking over Congress.
But that's the Daily.
I live in California, so whether you like the Daily Caller or not, if you live in California, they have a lock on this state. There's no way around it. They've changed so many laws. I forget every little thing they've done, but you can't get elected if you're a Republican anymore in California. Or Illinois.
That's largely true. I don't know about Illinois, but that's largely true for California. But that's largely true because Democrats have a huge, many more people vote Democratic here than for the Republicans.
Well, there are a variety of things that are done differently in California now. There's something called ballot harvesting, where, just so you guys understand, ballot harvesting is when the Democrats will go into a poor neighborhood and they will make friends with everyone in a large apartment building. And they will, or the whole neighborhood. They start a year in advance. And eventually they go door to door, apartment to apartment, collecting ballots and explaining to these people, we like the Democrat Party. They're not allowed to say vote for the Democrats, but they then collect their ballot. They give them the ballot, and then they take it back after the person's filled it out. This is illegal in most states. It's a new Democrat innovation in California. So now, unless you wanted to rebut me, I want to end. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I just want to tell people to see how much more successful the Republicans were at gerrymandering in 2010. Just go Google REDMAP, REDMAP.
Okay, and if you want a balanced view on it, you could look at Ben Shapiro on gerrymandering. Both sides are doing it. I don't think it's right, but I don't think it's only the Republicans. There's no evidence for that. Both sides do it around the country.
There's a shitload of evidence. And sure, Democrats will try to do that, but they were far behind in 2010. We got our asses kicked. The Republicans figured out that you could win an election for state legislature for $10,000, for $5,000.
Okay, we'll talk to Illinois. Talk to anyone from the state of Illinois or California. And also, thank you for that the head of the IRS usually doesn't meet the president or go to the White House very often. And it turns out that there was a staggering increase, that there were a series of regular meetings between the head of the IRS and Obama in the election year going up to 2012. And it just so happened that the IRS crushed Republican opposition in the key swing states of Florida and Ohio. So if you want to put your head in the sand, you can, Rick.
Okay.
All right, I want to end this at 1 o'clock, so we have 10 more minutes for any subject you want. Take over.
Let's take a break. I gotta take a break.
All right.
So, the live folks can catch the end of the session on YouTube. So say bye to the.
This whole
All right.
thing is going up on YouTube the regular way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. It's been fun. We'll try to keep doing this.
Yep.
That's to the live people, but we're going to keep talking.
Yep. Done. Okay. Cool. Oh, my arms are exhausted.
Sorry.
No, I need to get a tripod for next week.
Well, I could have propped up your arms on anything around here. I've got nothing but things that I can prop your arms up on.
Wait a minute. It's still rolling.
Well, that's good. So they heard that your arms were tired. At least they didn't hear me say anything racist. Okay, I usually say something. Guys, I usually say something really racist after the thing is turned off.
Jesus. What the hell?
Thank you. Are you still rolling?
Yes.
So this is a ball of clay. Lance is teaching a sculpture class, and there are
It's
little
for some
scraps
reason
of
it's
clay all over the place.
maybe it's not rolling anymore.
Okay.
Jeez. Let's see.
Do we play?
Here, give me Clinton cash. I'll bring it back.
Purple Rain. No, don't borrow that. Just read this article. This article has more.
Okay.
Yeah, but unless you want to read Clinton's past, but then is the camera turned off?
Michael L. and Edward D., thank you for your support. We appreciate it very much.
For the great questions during the.
And for your questions.
So I think we answered them. Was there another topic you wanted to discuss?
I just want to bring up, because I think Biden certainly, if he's not going to be the nominee, he's certainly going to be a front runner at some point over the next 5 months until we hit the convention. Which means that Hunter Biden, as an issue brought up by the Republicans, will not go away. And so I read, you did 40 hours of research. I did 20 minutes of research. I read the Wikipedia article about Hunter Biden. And, he's had his problems with addiction, drugs and booze. And
women too.
I was going to get to where after a 22-year marriage, he got divorced, and then he started dating his brother's widow, and they broke up, and he doesn't, he's
like humanity.
Well, he's kind of a mess. At the same time, he's not entirely unqualified to be a board member. He's got a law degree from Yale. He was an executive VP he's done a bunch of, he's been on boards before. He was appointed to a board by George W. Bush. And he's done a bunch of investment stuff. He's not entirely unqualified. He hasn't worked for an oil company before, but he's been on company boards before. And he's done venture capital before. And I don't remember everything he's done, but like a lie that the Republicans have said that the Chinese invested $1.5 billion in this VC firm that he started, hedge fund that he started. And that's an exaggeration by like 400-fold. The hedge fund was started with 4.2 million, not 1.5 billion. So anyway, we're going to hear a bunch about Hunter Biden over the next few months. And he's probably at least as qualified, because when you're going to hear this argument, so I might as well make it, that, you know, if you got a problem with Hunter Biden, then what about your problems with Ivanka and Jared, who made $90 million last year in business at the same time that they're working in the government? So that's
Well,
what,
if you're going to accuse me of circumstantial evidence,
yeah.
do you have any proof that Ivanka and Jared were being bribed or somehow bribing their father with this $90 million?
Well, you got no proof that Hunter was bribing his dad.
Well, yeah, actually you do. I mean, as much as anything can be proven in this world.
Well, no, because like if you want
For
to talk about
example-
Shogun, the president.
For example, when you said that Hunter Biden was really qualified, it turns out that he was making vastly more than a normal board member of that company would make.
How much did the normal board member?
I don't know, but I know that I heard the numbers at some point, but a normal person at that company would, as a board member of a company that size, might make a couple $100,000 a year, according to what is normal for business for companies of that size. Hunter Biden made $3 million.
Where do you get that $3 million? Because the article I read.
Because he was getting $83,000 a month, and he was a board member for 3 years.
I mean, if you do the math, it works out to $3 million. But the article I read said he made $50,000 a month, and that was only some months.
No, it was $83,000 a year. Then originally, the early articles that came out, you might have read an older one.
No, because it's Wikipedia, which gets updated with the most recent shit.
Well, Wikipedia
I know.
is horrendously inaccurate and left wing, and so I give it no credibility. But I remember specifically that when this all came out months and months ago, it was $50,000 a month, and now it turns out it's $83,000 a month over a period of several years. So it wound up being around $3 million. Now, so it's a very unusual amount of money. And it wasn't a situation where the question is, he had not proven himself to be qualified. In other words, you can be a board member because you're very good at investing and stuff like that. Or, I mean, you don't have to be an expert in Ukrainian culture. I can understand that. But you do have to be a successful man to be given $3 million. You have to have a track record of accomplishments, and he doesn't have that. It's true that he went to Yale, but
and he started hedge funds, and he worked in corporate compliance.
He wasn't a successful businessman particularly. He wasn't worth several $1 million. And the only thing, when they interviewed him, I have his own testimony according to the interview he gave to a left-wing TV station. I don't remember if it was CBS or ABC.
You can't call CBS and ABC.
No, there's actually an interview where they asked him, why do you think you were put on the board of this company? And he actually answered, he thinks his father's being vice president probably had something to do with it.
I don't think we disagree about that.
Okay, so you can't tell me that you aren't suspicious about this. You can't pretend that this is an innocent thing. And you're acting like, oh, he was perfect. Of all the people on earth, he was perfectly qualified. You admit that his father's connections was vital.
I'm not saying that he's innocent of family connections, but I am saying that it wasn't completely unreasonable to put him on a board. Now, his own company said, like, I think John Kerry, the company that he was at said, you shouldn't join this board because exactly this kind of thing will happen.
John
But-
Kerry's
Well,
son.
actually, it turns out
John
last.
Kerry's son.
Hang on. No, I wanted to make a correction. Last week, I had implicated John Kerry's son in this deal. I said that Kerry and Biden were mixed up in it. And it turns out that John Kerry's son, when he found out what kind of a company Burisma was, how incredibly corrupt it was, actually sent an email to Hunter and to all the governing bodies, anybody that was interested. He was very public, very upfront, said, I'm leaving. I sever all ties to this, to Burisma and to Biden, business-wise, because I think this is going to be, I have, the reputation is unseemly. So Kerry's son actually did the right thing. Biden's son, Hunter Biden, did not. And furthermore, not only when you say it's not unreasonable, it was so unreasonable, it turns out there was actually a meeting between Obama and Biden about this. There was a White House meeting where Biden was advised not to let his son be a part of this.
How do we know this?
It's just coming out that everyone that there was a White House meeting because they themselves were concerned about it, and inevitably, because Biden was the point man for all Ukraine policy, it turns out that frantic calls were made to the State Department, to Washington, after the head of Burisma's house was raided. Because, now I said this months ago, and you got me to be a little confused about it, but it turns out, nope, the head of Burisma, his house was raided, his assets were seized. I even said his Lamborghini. It turns out, yes, his material possessions were seized. And we know that calls were made mentioning Biden to Washington, and we know that subsequently Biden told the Ukrainians to fire Shokin, who was the man that ordered the raid. So you can hate on Shokin all you want, but he raided the president of Burisma's house. Biden told the Ukrainians to fire him, and they did, and he used $1 billion in aid as leverage to do it.
No,
You're never going to win this one. Go ahead, refute me, rebut me.
Well, we're out of time.
No, we're not. You tell me.
We have
I'm
time.
wrong.
We have time.
All
Yeah.
right, so your timeline is wrong, I believe.
Prove it.
Well, I can't right now.
No, you
but I
can.
can
This
if I
is
do
very
it.
simple. This is very easy.
And Shokin,
Did Shokin raid the president of Burisma's house and seize his assets?
what year? And for offenses,
Within a few months of the threat from Vice President Biden, who then got him fired.
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Well, I'm certain of it. And that's why we're here today. That's why Biden's not going to get the nomination. Because he's going to get this hammered on him. He's lost. It's over. He's not going to recover from this. There are also several other members of the Biden family.
Hold on. No, because what I've read is that the investigations were into Burisma. Now, you can, long before Biden joined the board.
Oh, that's true.
Hold on.
That's true.
And that one reason they tried to get guys like Biden on the board was to have more international governance.
Well,
now,
it was to show that they were, it was to increase their prestige. That's what they say.
and to look less shitty.
Right, but unfortunately, that didn't work out. It made him look worse. Because when the chips went after his house was raided, they called Washington, and a leverage was put on the Ukrainian
think so,
government.
but I'll look it up.
Should it be
I'll look it up.
investigated by the government, though? You think it should be investigated as to
Well,
what happened?
that's why the President Trump intervened actually in
that's-
the conversation and said what is going on with Burisma and Biden and
no, that's
what's-
horseshit.
No,
That's,
it's not horseshit
No, because-
any more than my Uranium 1 was horseshit.
yeah, well, that's horseshit too.
So wait a minute, everything that I said in that half hour was horseshit?
No, but the deal that
You still
central-
believe that Hillary Clinton was innocent of any kind of wrongdoing in the Uranium 1 deal?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have documents with signed documents to prove that, Rick?
No, but you don't have signed documents to prove it the other way.
Rick, the CFIUS deal was secret. The deliberations are not public knowledge.
I can't help that.
And Clinton was the Secretary of State,
I
and she did give approval to the deal.
You don't know that because it's all.
Yes, she did, because she was Secretary of State.
Yeah, you made that argument, and then there was a lot of yelling last week.
The undersecretary did her bidding. If she was against it, he couldn't vote for it. And she had an ethical obligation to reveal to them that she had been receiving money to her foundation during the process.
Does the
of
New
this
York
deal.
Times article that
Yes,
you cited,
yes,
does
it
it
does say
say,
that.
what does it say?
That she was the Secretary of State.
Yeah, but does it say that she was likely consulted on this? Because I've read other articles.
Yes, she was likely, it says she was likely consulted because she was a big, I explained earlier, I
Okay,
guess you
all right,
weren't
okay.
listening.
No,
She
I
had
was.
actually shut down a Chinese
I
deal
know, but-
that went through CFIUS. So
All right,
so she was concerned about CFIUS deals with the Arab Emirates and China. Why would she be concerned about those two deals, but absolutely has no interest whatsoever in this Russian deal for the same exact uranium mines? Why would that be?
I'll
Rick?
read the New York Times
And
article.
besides, why don't you blame her for things she's in charge of? That's not a very good argument. That's like saying if a private shoots somebody, the sergeant that is up above him has no responsibility, that gave the order.
Well,
It's a bad argument, Rick. She's the Secretary of State. She has to take responsibility for what her assistant agreed to.
I'll have to look at the other deals and see what they were and see if this matches those deals in its
All right,
general.
fine.
Okay.
How do you feel about witnesses not being called, Rick, in the impeachment trial?
Well, it's all. Well, Trump was never going to be impeached. No president Trump was never going to be kicked out of office. No president has ever been kicked out of office. And the whole thing is kabuki, designed to, with the Democrats hoping, with each side hoping that what happened would increase sympathy for their side. It would probably have been more persuasive for the American voter had Bolton testified and said that Trump told him directly that he was withholding Ukrainian aid until they investigated Hunter Biden. And the Republicans, Trump himself, I didn't see it, but he was interviewed by Sean Hannity during halftime of the Super Bowl, was saying he won the impeachment, that he's staying in office, and saying it was, I guess, a witch hunt or whatever he says. So each side hopes that it will persuade voters. So
you mean the Democrats were using impeachment to interfere in the American election?
Ooh.
no, to make their case.
To interfere in the American election. You just said that, Rick.
It's not interference, it's persuading.
They were using the impeachment process, which is a very solemn process reserved for high crimes and misdemeanors, in order to get votes, in order to dirty up the president and create a national circus so that they could possibly win the election. And it's disgusting, and I don't understand.
Well, what's
I don't
disgust-
understand
all right,
what your moral. Do you have a moral compass? Do you have any sense of right and wrong? If the Democrats can use impeachment to get Trump, even though they know it won't work, just as a political circus,
the counter argument is that Trump clearly, and even some of the Republican senators say what he did was not appropriate. They said, guys like Lamar Alexander said, a Republican said, not appropriate, but didn't rise to the level that he should be removed
well,
from
then,
office.
if appropriateness is your only concern, why didn't the Democrats call for an investigation of Joe Biden?
Because he didn't do anything.
Well, he threatened to withhold funds from the Ukrainians unless they fired the prosecutor.
Corrupt prosecutor.
The prosecutor that had raided the home of Burisma, the company that his son worked for.
A prosecutor.
I don't care what kind of prosecutor he was. I don't care if he raped little children and strangled puppies. He was the head of the company that gave $3 million to Joe Biden's son. And then Joe Biden got him fired.
There was more investigation of Burisma after Shokin was gone than during Shokin.
I don't care. It is not up to the vice president to threaten to withhold $1 billion from Burisma.
Look up Shokin.
No, don't tell them to look up Shokin.
Why? Do you not want them to have the information on Shokin?
They can look up Shokin after I finish my point. You're not allowed to pressure the official that is harassing your son's company. Not with $1 billion of American tax money.
Your framing of it is bullshit.
Well, no, it's not.
The European Union wanted Shokin gone.
It's not a coincidence that Biden's son was working for the company that Biden was pressuring, was supporting. In other words, it's not a matter of framing it. Of all the companies on earth that Vice President Biden could threaten, that could support, he happened to be supporting the one that his son worked for. That's corrupt, Rick.
No, because...
It definitely deserves investigation. Doesn't it, Rick?
No, it fucking doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Okay, well then...
Burisma had...
Well, wait. If it's not important to investigate Biden for pressuring the Ukrainians, then why is it important to investigate Trump for pressuring the Ukrainians?
If Trump said, and even if he didn't say, but Trump directly told Bolton, apparently, according to Bolton, that he was withholding aid until the Ukrainians announced they were investigating the Bidens.
Okay, but he didn't say that. We have no evidence of that.
So what Bolton says doesn't count about what Trump says?
It wasn't in the transcripts, Rick.
Yeah, but
we have the transcripts.
The transcripts they're not transcripts, they're summaries.
They're
not word for, they're summaries.
They're the best we have, Rick.
And they're supplied by Trump
himself. But they also asked all the people that were listening on the phone, well, most of them, none of them said there was any evidence of that. But we do have Biden, and we don't have Bolton yet. And we do
we'll have it in March when his book comes out.
And we do have Biden saying that he was going to withhold the evidence until they fire Shokin.
Yeah, no.
So what Biden did was much more clear.
No, that's garbage because...
It's not garbage.
No, let me explain why it's garbage. Biden says it in front of a room full of people with cameras rolling.
Because he's dumb.
No, he says it with pride
because... He admits to bribery.
No, he said he got rid of... No, he got rid of a corrupt prosecutor.
That happened to be prosecuting the company that his son worked for.
No, he wasn't prosecuting that company.
He was. He raided his home. He raided the president of Burisma's home.
When?
And seized his assets.
When?
Before Biden made this strong arm. That's the timeline. The timeline is he did that, then Biden got him fired. By threatening to withhold $1 billion.
That's not the whole story.
Well, how much, but doesn't it deserve to be investigated, Rick?
People have looked at it.
No, nobody's looked at it. When? Which governmental body looked at it? The FBI? The CIA? Who? You don't know because nobody did. There hasn't even been a Justice Department investigation, even though the Republicans own the Justice Department now under Trump. They still haven't investigated it. So why
maybe
is
they
it,
haven't-
why is it that what Biden
No, wait,
did?
so this shit happened what year?
It was fairly recently. I think it was in 2016 or 17.
So it's been 3 years.
Roughly, I can look up
And
the
a
exact
Republican
year.
Justice Department.
Has not done anything about it. No.
So maybe because
but
there's no
Biden did it while Obama was president.
All right, so, but it's been 3 years.
Yeah,
Now, you guys had.
But Biden made the threat while he was vice president, of course.
Okay, so, but you've had 3
And-
years, so why hasn't anybody investigated it? Why hasn't,
I don't know, but that's irrelevant.
I would say, it isn't, no, it's relevant
No, it
because.
isn't. You can't prove that because they haven't investigated it, that they shouldn't investigate it. Just means they haven't gotten around to it. Who cares?
Do you
Why?
want to hear from Bolton?
Okay, let's hear from
President
Bolton.
Zelensky, he and
Oh.
President Trump have already spoken twice. President called to congratulate President Zelensky on his election and then on his.
Oh, is this
success
gonna debunk
in
me or
the
something?
election. They were very warm and cordial calls. Were hosted.
Oh, this is Mark 11.
Wow. They were warm and cordial calls. Anything else? Nothing else. We'll continue. Anything else? Nothing else.
All right, enough of it.
No, wait a minute.
Concerned about the calls? Does he look like he's concerned about the calls?
Okay.
So, yeah,
The
he-
reason I don't use that argument is that we have a tape of Bolton saying, and I can show it to you, where
Does he look like he's
Bolton's.
concerned about the
Oh,
calls?
Can you
No,
turn
no,
that
no, no.
turn that off?
No,
Director?
we're done.
I have to thank the director because
It's the same
now
one,
he's
isn't it?
helped-
It's the same video.
I have to thank the director because you're not allowed to help me,
No, I'm just.
and you
I'm,
did. But the only official comment right now that we have from Bolton is an interview he gave with Ukrainian television.
This is the one. That's the same.
Yeah, where he says there was nothing wrong in the call. It was a cordial call, and that both the U.S. and the Ukraine are interested in getting at the root of corruption in the Ukraine.
Zelensky,
All right,
Stop that! Stop making that noise.
Um,
So in other words, the only thing we know until now is that Bolton backs up what the president said about
not
the
according
calls.
to the leaked excerpts from
Okay,
this book.
so
And we'll
so
know
the
about that
The
in a
reason I
month.
don't use the argument is that if Bolton now comes out and says that no, actually Trump was pressuring him to strong arm the Ukraine, then he would be contradicting what he said on tape before all this happened, when there was no pressure or benefit to him. So in other words, in a court of law, whatever he says now in his book is contradicted by what he said in the interview. Therefore, he's not credible anymore. He has no credibility. If you say one thing in an interview when it doesn't matter, and then months later when it's a big deal, you come up and you say something different, you're not a credible witness anymore. And that's why Trump said Bolton is irrelevant.
He said game over.
All right, so are we done? I think we should
Yeah,
be.
yeah, let's
All
be
right.
done.
Thank you very much, everybody.